Okay, let's go on the record. All right, are we ready for the jury?
State's ready, Judge.
Okay, then let's go ahead and bring the jury. Go ahead and mute it.
Okay, are you going to go over the schedule with them when they come in or at the
Yeah.
end?
Oh, you got to mute that one, Bill.
Turn video off, correct?
Yeah.
Jerry.
Okay, jury's present and seated. You may be seated.
Camera's operable.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I think the bailiff informed me all of you have questions about what our schedule is going to be like. It is anticipated we'll end today before 5 o'clock. We will resume tomorrow again and go through the entire day and then give you the case for consideration on Wednesday. That's the plan for now, okay? All right. Defense, you may call your next witness.
Your Honor, the defense calls Clifton Williams.
Okay, he's in here.
He is here.
Oh, he's...
Yeah, should be outside. Did Your Honor say you're thinking about going on Wednesday?
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about it.
Please, right hand, sworn, please.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so
around here.
Just watch those 2 steps a little tricky. Thank you.
Make sure you speak loud and clear. So the viewers can hear what you have to say, okay?
All righty.
You may proceed. Pull the microphone in front of you, please. You may proceed.
Okay. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
All right. Mr. Williams, would you please state your name and describe your relationship with Robert Hayes for the record?
My name is Clifton Williams, Jr. Robert Hayes is my cousin.
And during what period of life did you and Robert Hayes spend time together?
Well, Robert kind of came into my life after my sister-in-law passed away. He's very close with my brother. They're closer in age than me and him are. So he used to come around with my brother. And then when my sister-in-law passed away, my brother moved into me and my mom's house with the kids. And Rob would come over and, just check on us, check on my brother, hang out with us, and just be there for the family in general. So it was a very hard time, but we were lucky to have him.
Yes, sir. And
so that's kind of how our relationship started. So from there, and I would say probably until 2018, we were cool.
so he'd actually come by and check up on the family when the family was going through rough times?
Yes, Rob would come over all the time.
And we've all heard the expression, he was somebody who would be there.
Oh, yes, definitely. I mean, we call him Squeaky as a family name. So I might go back and forth between Squeaky and Robert. But, yeah, I mean, he's always been dependable for me and my family. Definitely with my brother, he kind of built a really good relationship with him. So he was somebody who my brother confided in a lot. So definitely in a hard time like that, he definitely was there for that. I mean, and even, kind of when things calmed down, he still came over. We would just talk and, just hang outside and chill.
So is it fair to say he's friendly?
Yeah, very friendly. Very friendly. Would talk to anybody.
All right, and you know anything about Robert reciting poetry?
Oh, yes. He invited me and my brother many times. He would go to Miami and do different poetry jams, and it was amazing to watch. It was just amazing to watch, this intelligent, knowledgeable man, do it. It was amazing. It was amazing.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but these types of poetry readings, they're kind of a type of performance?
Yeah, it's a performance. I mean, the setting would be, it would be musicians there. It would be a lot of different, performing arts. So definitely.
So this is something that's done for the audience as opposed to some self-indulgence for the poetry reader.
I mean, as in all art speaks from who you are on the inside. So,
yes,
of course, I mean, it was for the audience performing, but I'm quite sure that it came from within him also.
Okay. And you say it came from within him. You sound like you know something about the inner Robert Hayes.
I mean, I only know what I've seen and witnessed from him. He's always been somebody who's been there for me, loving. Even if I think about some of the things he talked about in his poetry, he talked about a lot of injustices that are going on in the world. Things that matter to him. So,
now, it's fair to say that Robert has a strong sex drive, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, definitely.
And from what you could say and what you observed and heard, I know it's hard to quantify, but maybe Robert's sex drive was a stronger force in his life than most men?
I don't know if I would say a stronger force than most men. I feel like and a lot of men sex drives, so I can't say more than most men. I can't speak for most men.
Yes, sir. Well, let me ask it a little differently. He actually invited you to attend sex parties, right?
One time he invited me to attend one sex party, but like I said, we didn't go into much detail about it, so I can't tell you if it was something that he did all the time or if it was something, if he knew the people. I don't know. We didn't really go into much detail about it, but yes, he did invite me to a sex party.
I think you told me you didn't actually go, but
No.
But it's something he did, and he invited you.
Yes.
Okay. And he did use prostitutes, right?
From my knowledge, I have never witnessed it personally, but from my knowledge, he has had sex with prostitutes, yes.
Okay. I mean, he talked about it with you.
Yeah, we've talked about
The
it.
way guys will talk, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And he also used some hookup websites for sex, right?
Yes.
Okay. I think one was, I heard mentioned the Backpage. Does that sound like one of the ones he might have used?
Yeah, that sounds familiar. We didn't go into much detail as far as where he would get the women from, but Backpage is definitely one of the pages, one of the websites that we discussed. Yes.
Okay. And I think he also mentioned to you that he went to sex clubs, right?
I don't know if he went to sex clubs or not.
I might be mixing up sex party with sex clubs, but in any event, he had an active sex life.
Yes.
Okay. And even in this day and age of AIDS, maybe an active sex life to the point of being risky, right?
I can't say risky or not. I mean, I wasn't there, so I can't say if he used protection or not or any of those things. I don't know. I have no answer. I don't know.
Okay.
But, I mean, did he have a lot of sex? He had a lot of sex.
Okay. And you're aware that he had a girlfriend with whom he had a child, right?
Yes.
Do you remember her name?
Shawnee. I don't know if I remember her last name, though.
Okay. Does Shawnee Osumano sound right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay. Did you have an opportunity to see how Robert Hayes treated Shawnee?
Yeah, a lot of times. I remember one time, Shawnee would come over a lot of times with him over to the house with the baby, and I never saw, everything I saw was loving and caring. I've seen them have one argument, but it was just a verbal argument and never got, abusive or, a point where I thought I would have had to step in or step between or anything like that. It was just a little verbal argument. Couples argue, so.
All right, and I think what you're describing is what might be called a quarrel between
Yeah, like a little quarrel, yeah.
Okay, and fair to say that sometimes quarrels are contained and sometimes they can spin out of control, right?
Sometimes, but I haven't witnessed the spin out of control.
So as far as you could tell, Mr. Hayes always was able to control his temper and keep calm.
From what I've seen, yes, from what I've witnessed.
Even in a quarrel with a
Yeah, one time we went. He went to Bethune-Cookman College, so they have the classics every year. So one time he invited me to a classics, was having a party, and he invited me to the party. And I'm sorry, it was a party at a club at downtown Disney. And he invited me to the party at the club, and then afterwards they had a little disagreement. I don't know what the disagreement was about, but they did have a little disagreement. But by the time we got to the car, it was pretty much over. It wasn't, anything. I didn't feel nervous or felt like, Shawnee, let me move you out the way. I didn't have any of those. It wasn't that serious. It was just like you said, a little quarrel, and by the time we got to the car, it was over.
And obviously, you weren't there when they were having sex. You just were in a normal lay situation. You saw a quarrel, and you were able to observe how Robert Hayes acted in a normal, non-sexual situation, right?
Yeah.
And what you saw was in a quarrel situation, he was able to control himself and keep calm.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes?
I'm sorry. Yes, I mean, and there has been times when him and Shawnee might have gotten into an argument, and he would come over to the house just to vent to me and my brother about it, things like that.
To kind of vent and cool off.
Yeah, vent and cool off.
Okay. And did that indicate to you some self-control on the part of Mr. Hayes?
Most definitely. My cousin has been someone who has shown me self-control in a lot of different situations. So he's definitely somebody who I've seen have self-control.
And I don't want to make it uncomfortable, but
no, it's okay.
Am I correct in assuming that you've never been in a house when Mr. Hayes was, for example, having sex with a woman in the back row?
No, I've never been in a house when he was having sex.
Okay, so you wouldn't know anything about what happens when he's with a woman having sex?
I have never been in a room with them having sex.
Okay. You mentioned that he had Shawnee, and from what you could see, you might have touched on this, but did you observe his interactions, whether it was by phone or any other form of communications, with his daughter?
Yes, definitely. He has a older daughter that lives in California, and I've seen him multiple times interact with his daughter, very lovingly. There's been times where he would, on FaceTime help her with her homework, just see how her day is going. Things that a father would do, that I would, that a regular father would do. He loves his children with all of his heart. So, I remember he even had went to she was having some kind of competition or something in Las Vegas, and he flew out to Las Vegas just to be there for her in the competition. So he was a very loving father and tried to be there for both of his kids. Even though she was a distance away, he would call her every twice, 3 times a week just to check on her, see how she's doing, see if she needs anything, all those kind of things.
How about to you as a friend? What kind of friend was Robert to you?
My cousin was a wonderful friend. I'm somebody that kind of has a problem opening up to people, and he was like the opposite of that. He's very outgoing. He's somebody who would talk to anybody, about anything. And he was kind of helping me kind of break out of my own shell, So he was very, very caring, very loving. From that's the cousin that I know.
And when you say he would help you break out of your own shell, would I be correct in attributing the quality of helpfulness to Robert?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes?
Definitely, yes.
He's a helpful individual. Remember you told me something about him being Robert being a big, imposing man?
Imposing? Can you?
Sure. Something you told me about, he's a very large man, and some people are intimidated by that.
I mean, people can be intimidated by that. He's over 6'3", 4", and he carries himself, with pride, with his head held up, and a lot of people can take that as intimidation, but he's also somebody who will talk to anybody about anything. He's not, he very quickly breaks that stereotype in your mind if you just have a conversation with him. And he's somebody who would quickly have a conversation with anybody about anything. And inside the conversation, you begin to realize, oh, he's a big teddy bear. He's.
In other words, he's a man that you should not judge by his large size. Definitely. He's really a big teddy bear.
And he has a deep voice and, a commanding presence. And, so people can take that and run with it. But if you actually had a conversation with him and get to talk to him, you would hear how knowledgeable he was, that he was a very caring person, and passionate. He was very passionate too.
Okay. And so if somebody were to see Robert and be intimidated by him and maybe standoffish, and you wanted them to meet Robert, what would you say? Would you say, don't, you tell me in your own words. How would you make them comfortable about Robert? What would you say about that's true?
My cousin knows how to make people feel comfortable around him. There's not much I would have to do. You know, he would just start talking to them, and before you know it, their guards is down and they're comfortable. And they're laughing. He's a jokester. He loves to make people laugh, so they'll be laughing and, you know.
Okay. And would you maybe even use the expression big teddy bear?
Yeah.
Now, you know Robert's been convicted of 3 different murders in this case. You're aware of that, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Do you still consider him a friend?
Yes, I consider him family. He's still my family. I love him. That's my cousin. Yeah, the convictions doesn't change how he was there for me. It doesn't change my truth, you know. I know that he loved me and my family. I know that he was there for me and my family when we needed him the most. I don't think my brother would have made it through without him. I know that much to be true.
Which brother?
I have a brother. My brother's name is Harold.
Oh, yes, Harold. Yes, sir. Yes. Okay.
That's the one I was saying that I just said my sister-in-law passed away. It was his wife.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So.
And so it's fair to say he's enriched your own life.
Definitely, most definitely.
And
he was helping. My grandmother left me with a sweet potato pie recipe. He was trying to show me how to start an LLC and kind of grow that into a business and, you know, do different things like that. I mean, like I said, he's so knowledgeable in so many different aspects of life that, you know, just sitting down listening to him, I would just, you know, grab knowledge and gain knowledge from him. So he would, you know, he was telling me about different things about, you know, how to start a business and, you know, what it takes and the different, you know, aspects and areas that I needed to do to get that started. So most definitely.
If he,
in his own life, he was telling me he wanted to be at that time a high school cooking teacher. You know, he had filled out applications and things like that to be a high school cooking teacher. So,
and I'm glad you brought that up. From what you could tell, was he always trying to better himself?
Yes, most definitely.
You mentioned trying to become a cooking teacher. Can you think of any other examples?
I mean, ever since I've interacted with Robert, he's always had a very decent job. I mean, and when he didn't, in between jobs, he still always had two or more jobs. So even, you know, at one point he was working for a local diner in the area. You know, he was an assistant, an executive assistant or something like that. He was like second in command pretty much. So he's always looked to do better and be better, even inside of everything. Since I met him, he's always been cooking. So he's always been better and striving to be better in that.
Let me ask you this. If I succeed in persuading the jury not to sentence him to death, would you go see him in prison?
Oh, most definitely.
Do you
Most
think
definitely.
he could still...
I mean, COVID is the only reason that I really haven't been able to now, but most definitely.
Okay. And do you believe, based on what you know of him and what you've talked about here today, that he could still be a benefit to you and his daughters?
Most definitely. I mean, the relationship that he built with his daughters are irreplaceable. You know, he was not an absent father. Even though, you know, one of his daughters stayed in California, you know, he was there for her in every way that he could be. You know, he loves his children. That much I've seen with my own eyes. You know,
Yes,
so he definitely, you know, we benefited from him.
And thank you for that. I'm going to see if anybody else, my client wants me to ask anything else. Just give me a moment.
Any cross?
No further questions from the defense.
Good afternoon, Mr. Williams.
How we doing?
Just a couple quick questions for you. It sounds like based upon your experience with Mr. Hayes, that he really didn't have any problems expressing himself as a person, whether it be through, you talked about poetry, or through his cooking. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
So he's a pretty expressive person.
Yes. Around me, he was very expressive. Yes.
And I think it was you who mentioned that he even, he'd have no problem coloring his hair one day if he wanted to change his hair color. He had that confidence about it.
Definitely. And that was one of the things that I admired about him, that I aspired to pick up from him, was that confidence to be him. He was him.
And he was a bit of an extrovert, to say the least.
Yes, he's definitely the life of the party.
And you said that kind of helped you come out of, maybe you were more introverted, helped you come out of your introverted self a bit.
Yes, sir.
And through the years knowing him, did you ever observe anything that made you think that he may have been suffering from any type of mental illness?
No, nothing.
And he was the type of person that would think processes through when making decisions?
With me, yes, we thought through. Like I said, he was showing me how to start a business and things like that. So, impulsiveness, we all can be a little impulsive, but he was definitely somebody who thought through and made decisions from what I saw. Yes.
And in fact, isn't he also rather composed even when you've seen him using alcohol or other substances? You've said he remains composed.
As composed as you can be. He wasn't belligerent.
Okay. And
we still had fun. He was still, the life of the party, laugh and all of those things. But he wasn't belligerent or violent.
Not getting into confrontations or fights or anything like that?
Nothing. I've never seen it.
And you testified just a few moments ago about Mr. Hayes talking about this sex party with you, and then also he talked to you about using prostitutes, right?
Briefly. It wasn't an in-depth conversation. It was just like a matter-of-fact type thing. It wasn't detailed.
In any of those conversations about those types of things, he never mentioned that he had been sexually assaulted when he was younger, did he?
No.
You have a moment, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Williams.
Anything else, defense?
None.
All right, thank you. You're free to go. You're excused. Defense, your next witness.
Your Honor, the defense would next call Ms. Florence Hayes, the defendant's mother.
Is she on Zoom?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Hayes, can you hear me?
She has to unmute herself.
Can't seem to get her. She's dialing in. Okay. Well, you can't get her on the phone, or
She's on the phone.
she can't get on
She
the...
says that she hears you.
She can hear me?
Yeah.
Can you ask her to unmute herself?
Can you unmute? She just hung up.
I've sent her several messages, but she's not responding.
Now I'll probably resume that if we've ever been successful.
Are you still there? Hello?
She previously testified, but I think she was at someone else's office when she did that.
Yes, sir, that was the state attorney's office in Palm Beach.
Oh. Do you know where she is?
Yes, what's wrong?
Is she in her home?
Yes. She's on a laptop, she said. Do you want to just leave her on the phone? And put her on speaker?
Well, she has to be on, I think it'd be better for the jurors to see her. So, does she not know what she's doing? Is that what's happening?
Here, Chris, you want to talk to her?
May I have a moment?
Yes.
Ms. Hayes, we're in the court right now waiting for you to come on the Zoom. Do you know how to do it? Can you hear me?
Yes.
You know, we had you go on Zoom before. We need you to do that again. Is anybody there? Is anybody there that can help you with it?
No, I'm trying to unmute I
Oh, there's a little. If you got a screen, there's a little like symbol in the bottom left corner of your screen. It's the left corner, right?
Left.
Unmute. You see that?
I did at the bottom of my screen, but I couldn't unmute my name.
We can get someone to her house.
Sorry?
We're going to get somebody to her house. We're going to do,
They might be able to have somebody in South Florida to get to her house, maybe. Got the South Florida Council.
If she just hangs up and then tries it again, it should fix it.
let me see if she can just do it on the phone instead of,
No,
The
well,
laptop.
I'm not telling you how to run your
no,
business.
no. But I'm saying to be on Zoom on her phone instead of the laptop.
She can try that, whatever.
Let me try.
I have a deposition of her if worse comes to worse, Your Honor.
Well, I think it'd probably be a good idea for you.
Do we want, there's, I think, other witnesses outside, do you want them to
Yeah.
try and bring the, probably try and fix it?
Yeah, let's do that so we don't keep people waiting if we can.
Okay, call another witness.
We would call Terris Collins.
Terris Collins. Collins.
Yes, sir.
Come forward. Bill, can you help her out?
Oh,
Right.
no, I gotta sit up there.
Raise your right hand so I can swear you in, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you.
That's right, ma'am.
Before I start with Ms. Collins, I need to address something at the bench. I didn't realize the change of order would occur just now. I would have called this to your attention before she took this thing.
Okay. All right, we can come sidebar.
No, I don't.
No, you could hit. Yeah, okay.
Bill, that's fine.
Your Honor, may I talk to the prosecutors?
Yeah.
We might be able to resolve.
All right, you ready to proceed?
Yes, sir.
Okay, was she sworn?
Yes, Judge.
Thank you. You may proceed.
That's.
Actually, I'm going to need you behind the podium so they can hear you.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is this an appropriate tone level? Or should
Just put the microphone in front of you, that's all.
Better?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Collins, would you please state your name and your relationship to Robert Hayes for the record?
Okay, my legal name is Terris L. Wilson -Collins, but in work I go by Collins, Collins.
Okay. And your...
Well, he's my youngest brother.
Okay. And we talked before you came here today, right?
That's a yes.
Yes.
You have to say it out loud.
Okay.
It's hard for me to see. So that,
Oh, you can't see him?
I have...
Cataracts?
Thank you.
All right.
No,
The problem is he's soft-spoken and the viewers can't hear him.
okay. But if you say he's the one I saw, he's the one I saw.
Yeah, that's fine. Well, you want to see him up closer?
No, I just want to make sure he says that's who he is.
Okay, thank you. You may proceed.
Yes, sir. So you are Robert Hayes' sister,
Yes.
and we talked a few days ago, and you indicated you have trouble testifying today because you've had some really rough things in your own life, right?
Yes. Do you want me to discuss that now?
Well, if you would, because I want the jurors to know that you've done us. It's hard for you to testify here, and I want them to know why. It's not dishonesty. You're going through some tough things, aren't you?
Oh, yes. On December 30th, 2021, my 36-year-old son was hit by a car and killed. I just got his ashes over a week ago. But I wanted to say that out of my family, they call, my mother would call in a couple of days and say, "You're okay." My other brother sends me texts every day. He says if I read them, then that means I'm okay. I'm not okay, but Robert was the only one that had compassion. And it kind of talked me through some stuff. Yeah, so I'm trying not to be emotional, but I'm an emotional person.
Yes, ma'am, and just feel free to stop everything, okay? We've got Kleenex. We can ask the judge to give you a break if you need it. And
Okay.
As Robert Hayes' lawyers, I want to thank you for coming to court this very hard time. And I told you I'd take care of everything. I'd arrange a investigator to drive you here and drive you back, right?
Yes.
Okay. I want you to repeat some of the things you told me about Robert's childhood. Basically, the kind of neighborhood and the kind of setting that Robert was raised in.
Okay. First, can I say, I don't know what I want to say. It's something I was going to say. I'm sorry. You didn't ask me this, but I want you to know that I love my mother. We all do, and she did the best I think that she knew how. And this is kind of like we're airing our dirty laundry, which we have to. And that's the hardest part. It's like people would know hearing this on YouTube. I never wanted people to know how I grew up or what happened to me. But speaking of how we lived, West Palm Beach is too small a city to say we have ghettos. I don't know what you call it. But we did live in substandard housing, except most of the time. I don't know where you want me to go. There is a lot of...
I'm going to let you kind of go where you want to go to the extent that the judge will allow it, because
Okay.
because in some ways there are no words better than your own. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
I'm not objecting. I think these questions need to be asked, not just a narrative.
You need to lead a little bit.
All right, I'll go ahead and leave it a little bit. Okay, ma'am, I'm going to ask some questions, and maybe it'll help us get through this better.
Okay.
So you and Robert, the family, were raised in some rough neighborhoods, weren't you?
Yes.
Okay. Fair to say there was a lot of gang activity in the area, too, as well, right?
Well, when I was growing up, they weren't really gangs, but there were, bullies and fights and stuff like that. They weren't called gangs.
Fair to say there was a neighborhood where kids sometimes had a fight you couldn't avoid.
Oh, yeah, there were kids, adults, everybody.
Okay. And you remember saying something to me about your family was descended from slaves, and there's some sort of survival things that are taught generation to generation. You remember that?
Yes. And also, Robert is part Native American on both sides, and that helps in anything. But that'll go too. He used to have long braids as a kid, even when boys should have had their haircuts, and my mother always braided his hair. He had long braids, and I don't know if that was some of the reasons for the bullying. But I could count back, say, like 4 generations. So my mother, my grandmother, my great-grandmother, and then the relatives, the generation before that. I don't know that much of stories. But it's been decades of sexual abuse in our family, all the way through, and only out of the 5 of us, only one brother has not told me a story about being sexually abused or molested. There was a lot of alcoholism in my family. My great-grandmother that raised me till she died, and I was about 8 or 9, she used to keep a mason jar. She said it was water, don't ever touch it. But I found out it was always full of gin. And she died of cirrhosis of the liver. Her daughter, my real grandmother that I called Fiend, she was an angry drinker. She would get drunk and she would get, angry. So you have to. There's a lot of violence and aggression in our family. My mother, because I've been to, individual counseling, group counseling, self-help programs, 12-step, adult children of alcoholics, Al-Anon. There's a thing called a dry drunk, where people don't drink, but they still have that anger and all of that. So that goes through the family. My uncle had a cocaine or crack habit for decades. He finally stopped on his own. But there was a lot of anxiety and things going on that would create these issues.
Yes, ma'am, and this goes back generations, is what you're telling us.
Yes, and I experienced the generations I had talked about. I truly experienced them. You speak you don't speak unless you're spoken to. If you don't look in adults' faces. Like, for example, when I went to college, I think some of the teachers thought I was sneaky because I would never look in their face. It took a while to be able to, like, because you didn't do that, you get hit, you get slapped. If someone had tobacco, they would spit it on you. I'm going all over the place. The thing you talked about, that we talked about history, and you hear people now talking about the talk, and the talk was in most African American families, because I was born in '59. My mother was a teenage mother, so one, that's not good. When I can still remember that when a white person walked on the sidewalk, my grandmother would push me into the streets, and she would get into the streets. And I was telling somebody, my grandmother, because of the Native American stuff, she could pass for white. And then you have this dark child, so we have to get off of the sidewalks to let a white person pass. So, it's 59, 60s, and all that is going on. But the talk is, you have to learn how to behave in the house so you don't get hurt outside. You watch what you say, you watch what you do. And a lot of the things people would say is, I'd rather kill you before I let them kill you. And them was society and all of that. So I think a lot of the harshness came from that, because they had to quickly teach you how to act. I mentioned every child had to be potty trained by 9 months, and now we know that's not right. But you had to be potty trained so they get a babysitter, so you could, they could go and work. So I think a lot of one half of Grace, my great grandmother, she married a sharecropper. I can't remember why I'm bringing that up now, but there's something in there. So there was a lot of, I would say, there's a lot of violence in the family. My grandmother, she would be called a hellraiser. She was into a lot of stuff. She was very strong.
I'm going to check as non-responsive to the question, and also none of this is really relevant to Mr. Hayes.
But I think I can direct, or maybe make it easier.
Okay.
Even for.
Okay.
I'll rule the objection. Go ahead. Try to lead a little bit, okay?
Yeah. Yes. Ms. Collins.
Yes.
Some people would say that your mother is a very strict disciplinarian.
She is.
Okay. And did you experience and witness some of that discipline?
Yes.
Okay. And is it fair to say that your mom at times would go too far and really cross a line from discipline, kind of moving into the zone of abuse?
Yes. Can I give some examples or no?
Yes, go ahead.
For me, my mother had what's called a razor strap, and that's what she would hit us with. It's very thick leather, and it could be for almost anything. You forgot something, you didn't do something. We were not allowed to go outside at all. I don't know. Anyway, so there was a time where I washed all the dishes, and she found a crumb or something, and she made me take all the dishes down, dishes, pots, and pans, and it was a lot of them, and had to wash each and every one, and make sure that's done before I went to school. And I was in elementary school. There is a story that I hear from my brother and sister that she used to bake pies and cakes to sell, and somebody ate part of a pie, and no one would say who did it. So she made them put their hands over the stove and the heat I only found this out as an adult. So somebody can, would tell. I don't think anybody's still told. When she would hit me, because I don't like to say beat, when she would hit me, I have to lay down. And then she would just keep hitting me until I tried not to cry until I started crying. But her thing was, I keep saying that she did the best that she knew how. When she would ask for something, you better hurry up and get it, or she would throw something at you. When she asked for cold water, and we all learned to kind of stay away. If it wasn't cold enough, she would throw it in your face.
Okay, I don't mean to cut you short, but I think at some point you do make a point here. We get the idea.
Yeah.
And I thank you for having the courage to say it here in this trial.
Yes.
But when you and I have talked, correct me if I'm wrong, but you don't want me to attack your mom, do you?
Sorry?
You don't want me to attack your mom, do you? You've told me that there's a reason for some of this that goes back in your mom's past, isn't there?
Yes, her mother was very aggressive and mean and always tried to fight her. My great-grandmother raised my mother, and then so she had to got involved in a lot of violence with her mother, trying to attack her. So her mother had 2 other kids, and there was an incident, because you don't talk back, and you have to agree with everything. And she always carried pistols, and she shot at her son. He had to jump the fence to get away, because she was going to. She was aiming. She was pissed. She was drunk. She was aiming, to do that.
Well, let me go back to what you said about the talk, okay?
Yes.
Your mom, Miss Florence Hayes, worked full-time to support the family, right?
She was on welfare at times.
Yes. And other times she was working full-time in a daycare center, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And don't you believe that your mom, Miss Florence Hayes, did some of these things because she believed, Miss Florence Hayes believed she needed to protect her kids by running a really tight ship and having firm discipline?
Yes.
Is that true?
Yes.
And that's why you told me you don't want me to attack your mom, right? Remember that?
As I get older, you can kind of see why somebody did what they did.
Yes, ma'am.
No, then I couldn't, but come from a kind of loving family. My mother is not good with emotions. That's what I told her thing about, my son died. Nobody came to see me. Or they just called, It's hard to talk about. Someone died. Everybody can't take that and understand that. But
yes,
I stayed away from home for decades because I didn't want to deal with her.
Yes, ma'am. And just to be clear,
yes,
I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you indicated, you remember our phone conversation, that over time as you've gotten older, you become more forgiving because you learned some of the things your mom had to deal with in life. Do you remember telling me that?
Yeah, we lived in Detroit, and she was in a domestic violence situation for a few years. That's when I was raped and molested. But he would beat her, and then, we had to come down to breakfast like, nothing happened, black guy, big lip, and you couldn't talk about it. Because I call it reverse engineering, but looking at, from all the things I've studied and read, it looks like she was probably molested or sexually abused. Like I said, I think everybody was. My grand uncle, now he was one of the first like colored people to work at NASA as a plumber. Let me put that in there. But then something happened, and he started drinking a lot, and my grandmother would beat him, whip him, as he's crawling down the sidewalk.
I'm not objecting.
Okay.
None of this is relevant to Mr. Hayes.
Well, I'll try to cut to the chase.
Because I don't.
No,
I say something.
I'll
Answer
ask
the
you.
questions, okay?
Yeah. Ma'am, we appreciate you're doing a good job, but my job as lawyers is to try to kind of keep this thing moving along. So I'm going to, at the risk of being a little bit rude, I'm going to kind of push you.
Okay, I don't mind.
So anyway, what you've come to, correct me if I'm wrong, but what you've come to learn in life is that your mother was a very strict disciplinarian, and sometimes it would cross into abuse. But you realize that part of it, this is because of the life she was raised in, the Jim Crow era, when black folks had to give their kids the talk, they had to move off the sidewalk, that if the kids were out there, they could get in trouble or get hurt. Is that why your mom was the way she became? Do you think?
Yeah, it's part of it. And then I think it's I don't want to go too far, it's the generational thing and how they dealt with discipline all the way through.
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Like I mentioned to you, I went to the Marine Corps, and it didn't bother me because it felt like home. It was so militaristic. Now, nobody knows what the generations, maybe one or two, but it's like, you speak when you're spoken to, you don't ask questions, you don't talk back, you do what you were told to do.
Okay. So are you saying that life at home was like being in boot camp?
It was worse than boot camp. So I did okay in boot camp. It was nothing different for me. And I'm saying this because we all kind of grew up in this. That's what I'm talking about.
Yes,
everything. Ma'am. And one of the investigators asked me, after I talked about all of the abuse and all those things, she said, "Why do you think Robert got away?" And I said, because he was younger, the baby, things had changed. So I thought he didn't receive the same abuse that I received of others. And she said he didn't escape. He got the same things.
All right. And on that point, I don't want you to name any names.
No.
Okay? And I've talked to the prosecutor about this.
Yes.
But I have their permission to ask you this question, their reluctant permission. At some point, did you learn that Robert got molested by another family member, somebody close to his own age? And don't mention the name, but did you ever learn of that?
Yes.
Okay. That was sexual molestation, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And someone asked, he told me that after college, when he was trying to get a job with CPS, and they showed the image of what they would have to experience or go through, and he said it brought him flashbacks, and that's when he started remembering everything. He never told me what was done to him. He just said.
In other words, he indicated that it was a sibling, another family member close to his own age, right?
Yes.
Okay, again, don't identify the
I'm not.
person. And so he indicated that when he told you this, about this recollection, what was his demeanor?
He was really, it went in stages. He was, because it was still new to him, and he's talking to me about it. And I'm asking him, what do you want me to do about it? How you want to handle it? I think after that he got angry. He yelled at the person. I think recently, last year, he forgave the person. I still haven't forgiven my people, but he forgave the person.
All right. I put the worst, toughest questions first. Now they're going to get a little easier for you, okay?
Okay.
So did Robert have a father figure in his life? And who was that?
It was Uncle Bill was like everybody's father figure. I don't know who, and his godparents, his godmother and his godfather, and they treated him much better than my mother did. Like, there were no birthday presents for any of us. But in his own household, it wasn't a mother and a father together in one roof kind of household. No, his father passed away early when he was a baby.
Okay. Do you know the cause of his death? The father's death?
I heard, but I don't know if Robert knows. I'm kind of cautious there.
Well, don't worry about hurting people's feelings now. We're in a trial and I'm fighting for his life.
Okay.
What did you hear?
The rumor or the thing was he probably got into some kind of criminal thing, and with his partners, they found him in the alley and they hit him in the back of the head so hard it knocked his eyeballs out, and he passed away there.
Okay, so his own father was murdered.
Yes.
Okay. Now I'm going to switch to some happier subjects.
Okay.
Goodness knows we need it.
Yes.
Robert cooked, didn't he?
Yes.
Okay, that was something that he did for others.
Yes. And he made his daughter's baby food like from birth. Everything was natural. Everything, he would not buy anything in jars. Everything had to be fresh.
Okay. How about just cooking at family events, picnics, cookouts, things like that?
Yeah. No, everybody would contribute something.
Did you ever taste his cooking?
Yeah, it was okay.
Just okay?
It wasn't my style.
Okay. And you had a chance to see, you mentioned that he made homemade baby food for his daughters. Did you have a chance to observe Robert interact with his daughters?
Yes. He loves his babies. And I don't, you got to tell me if I can or cannot say this. He talks to them often. He spends time with them for, I think, the first 2 or 3 years of the young one's life. It was them. Like, she didn't go to school or whatever. Everything she learned from him. And they still, under any circumstances, they still need him.
Okay. So you've seen him interact with his 2 daughters, and
yes.
I know you're not the daughter, but you're an outsider looking in. But
yes.
Are you saying that Robert is an asset plus to his 2 little girls?
He's an asset to them, to our family. Like I said, the compassion. Since he's been incarcerated, he's been helping people understand their cases. He's been helping people learn to read, tell time, because a lot of people don't know how to tell time from a clock. So I think he's a community asset and an asset to society. So even though the decision has been made, I don't want him to die. I think he can still add more to people's lives.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
Just briefly done. Thank you, sir.
Oh, he's okay.
Hi, ma'am. How you doing?
Okay.
You said that you
Oh,
kind of didn't see your mom for decades. Is that right?
yes.
When was that you cut off contact with your mom?
You have to give me a minute. I graduated from college in 81, 82. We came back here, and stayed for, I think, a couple of years. And that's when I would put all the kids. I don't know if I'm like the second mother, but I was the one who tried to get them out because my mother wouldn't allow it. That's when I put him in the African dance group. I put him in karate.
Who are you talking about?
Huh? Robert, I'm sorry.
Okay, so
that's not answering.
So the question is, when was it? Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I got you. So from there, went to Africa with my husband. Went to New York and stayed there for a while. So I guess say from the time I left to go to Africa, and I think it was '89, because we don't have that relationship. We don't have that. We talk about the weather, we talk about the sports, but to get intimate, we've never had that. My mother never kissed me or hugged me. It's okay. Like at age 2. When baby,
so I need you just to listen to my questions. Just focus on those, ma'am.
Okay.
You're 20 years or more older than Robert, right?
Yes.
So you went to college when he was born. You were actually at college, right?
Yes.
Okay. So it'd be fair to say for the first several years of his life, you weren't here, you were at college.
Yes.
And then when you moved back from college, you weren't living in the same house as him, were you?
For a short time. No, see, that was the second time. For the second time, we came back for a little bit. Yes.
Second time from college or second time from traveling the world?
Second time from, oh gosh. I can't.
Understand. Would it be fair to say, though, that you weren't home for a lot of the times Robert was growing up and how your mom was interacting with him?
Yes, but I knew the patterns.
Okay, you knew the patterns, but you're just going by patterns. You don't know how she actually, treated him, do you, ma'am?
I guess in that general sort of way, I would say no.
Well, I want to be more specific because
Okay.
you have a cousin named... Is Denise Williams your cousin?
Yes.
And Miss Williams said that when you and her were growing up, you were disciplined a lot more, but kind of when Robert's generation came around, the parents kind of got soft on them. Do you not agree with that?
They got softer, but they were still disciplined.
Okay. You didn't learn about this alleged sexual abuse of Robert until 20 years after it happened. Is that a fair statement?
I don't remember what age he was, but I would say fair.
Okay, and he was a young child, and the male relative was a child too when this happened, correct?
Yes.
Have you ever noticed any behavior on the part of Robert that would indicate to you that he has a mental defect?
No.
Have you ever seen him have a mental illness of any sort?
No.
And he, in fact, lived with you when he was a grown-up, right? For a little while?
Yes. Yes.
So you've had an opportunity to observe him, see his behavior, correct?
Yes.
Never saw him lose control, attack anybody, correct?
No.
Never saw him overreact in any situation, correct?
No.
In fact, you would agree that he's a pretty in-control individual, right?
Yes.
Would you also agree he's a pretty sociable individual? He has a personality, he's outgoing, talks to folks?
Yes.
Friendly to other people?
Yes.
You yourself were able, with all of the things that you encountered as a child, you went to college and you succeeded, right?
Yes.
You have a professional job, a master's?
Yes.
Okay, and Robert was also able to go to college, graduate with a degree from a college, correct?
Yes.
He actually went on to go to cooking school, correct?
Yes.
don't have any other questions, Judge.
All right, thank you. Anything else?
Ma'am, what was your degree in? You earned a degree, right?
I have a bachelor's in psychology and a master's in human relations and supervision. And I was working on a doctorate, but my eyes got too bad.
Okay. So you actually pursued a profession where you're helping people. Am I right?
Yes.
All right, thank you. You may step down. Be careful coming down. Bill, you don't mind making sure she safely makes it down. You want me to try Florence again? Florence Hayes? No. Okay, Ms. Hayes, can you hear me? Ms. Hayes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, do you know how to turn the camera on?
That makes a big. Yeah, I got help now.
Okay.
See, it's not muted now.
If I can get you or your help to turn the camera on.
Turn the camera on. Where's the camera?
Sir, we might have to try and have her log in through her phone. This is Thomas Weiss, for the record, from ORCC. And Zoom is not able to detect her camera.
Okay, then try the phone. That'll be fine.
All right, go ahead.
You can go ahead and hang this one up and try it through the phone.
Okay.
Yeah. Who's leaving? You doing that? You're not doing anything.
Is her phone REVVL? Is that what it is?
What'd you say?
Looks like it's connecting now.
Okay, then I'm going to have to remove, otherwise we're going to end up with feedback. I'm going to have to remove her off of the...
That's fine.
I believe she's logged on now.
Yeah.
Can I do that?
Your Honor, can you hear us?
We can hear you and we can see you, but I think I'm hearing you through the computer and I'm seeing her through the phone.
Recording in progress.
I want to remove her computer. Okay, how about speaking now?
Your Honor, can you hear us now?
It's perfect. Now we can proceed. Thank you. All right, Ms. Hayes, this is Judge Zambrano. Welcome. Can I get you to please, she's been sworn previously, so she's still under oath. Ms. Hayes, the next voice that you will hear will be Chris Anderson, which is Robert Hayes' lawyer. Mr. Anderson, you may proceed.
Ms. Hayes, I'm Attorney Chris Anderson, and we're now in the second part of your son's trial. Thank you for being here by Zoom.
Okay.
Have you state your name? I know you're his mom, but please state your name and your relationship to Robert Hayes.
My name is Florence Hayes, and I'm Robert Hayes' mother.
Okay. And ma'am, am I correct in understanding you're 80 years old right now? You're 80 years old right now?
Yes, December 16th, I was 80 years old.
Okay, congratulations. I understand you have a little trouble walking around. You need a walker to move, right?
I have a walker and I have a walking cane.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. Well, I do thank you for appearing by Zoom. Thank goodness we live in an age of technology because we can have you here today. Now,
Okay.
Now, Robert is your youngest child, right?
Yes.
He's the baby of the family, right?
Yes.
And you were a single mom when Robert was born, right?
No.
You were married?
Yes, to his dad.
What happened to his dad?
His dad was murdered down on 3rd and Rosemary in West Palm Beach.
Yes, ma'am. Now, then after that, you would pretty much have to raise the kids as a single mother yourself, weren't you?
Yes.
Now, there were other men in Robert's life, like he had a school teacher and a band teacher, right?
Yes.
But no father in his house. It was just you. His mom had to do it all alone, right?
I had help, but it was it was every once in a while help, like from family members and my friends.
And now, when Robert was a small child, he was in daycare. Was he there?
Yes.
Okay, the camera shifted a bit. When Robert,
Okay.
When Robert was a small child, you actually worked at the daycare center he was enrolled in, right? You got a job at the daycare?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I enrolled him one day, and the next week I went to work there.
And how many years did you stay working there? We just lost our...
What happened? I worked there about 26 years. I stayed working there after he went into public school.
Okay, yes, ma'am. And so you did not have the luxury of being able to take some time off work to be at home with the kids. You had to work the whole time, right? Did you hear? Am I coming across?
Ms. Hayes? I think we might have lost the feed.
That's good.
You want to start it over?
I can pick up where we went blank. Ms. Hayes, can you hear me now?
I'm afraid that this is not working out. if you waive her
Yes.
video feed, we can do it through the phone. It'll be a lot easier.
Yes, ma'am.
But it's entirely up to you. You have to waive it if you want to talk to your client about that. You want to do it through the telephone?
Yes, sir. I just looked at my clock and got it, and it's okay for me to go ahead and waive it.
Okay, I'll tell you what. We need to get a phone number from her.
Eric, you can ask him if he can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we need your telephone number.
What's your phone number?
I'm on my phone.
Just
Oh,
phone number.
561. Tell them my number. One 42014. I see. Huh?
Okay. You're going to have to get back behind the microphone now.
Okay.
Miss Hayes, this is Judge Zambrano. This will be a little bit easier. The next voice you'll hear will be Mr. Anderson, okay? Tell me if you have any trouble hearing him, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Anderson. Speak right into the
Yes,
mic.
yes, sir. Ms. Hayes, as a young child, Robert, when he was small, was educationally wise ahead of most of the kids his age, wasn't he?
Yeah, in his class, yeah.
Okay. And that resulted, didn't it, in some idle time and him getting into mischief?
Yeah.
They didn't have anything like a gifted program for kids that are way ahead of their classmates at that time?
Well, he was 4 or 5 years old.
Yes.
And I don't think they put him in the gifted program till later on, and you have to be tested to go into the gifted program.
Yes, ma'am. Now, Robert played a musical instrument, didn't he?
Yes, he played the tuba.
Yes, ma'am. And he also wanted to better himself in life, didn't he?
Yes.
And towards that end, he went to college, didn't he?
After he graduated from high school.
Yes, ma'am. He went to Bethune-Cookman College, right?
Yes.
Okay. And throughout all of this, you continued working to support your family, right?
Yes.
And can you tell us the names and the ages of all your children?
Robert is 40. John is 46. Jesse is 50. I think Jesse is 50. Pedro is 51. And Terris is 61.
Okay. All right. And Robert was the baby of the family, right?
Yes.
Now, while you were working to support your family, is it fair to say that you ran a pretty tight ship at home?
Yes, when I was there.
Okay. And I take it that you were concerned for the safety of your children, right?
Yes.
And you discipline them a lot, right? In other words, you.
Yes.
Okay, and sometimes.
Yes, I did.
And sometimes that discipline involved whoopings, right?
Yes.
And I understand that the whoopings were, correct me if I'm wrong, but I understand the whoopings were done to protect your kids. You were afraid that bad things would happen to them in the neighborhood and in the streets and so forth. Am I right about that?
The whooping wasn't to protect them. The whooping was to let them know to do what I say.
Okay, to let them know who was boss, right?
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
Mom was always right.
And would you say things to your kids because you loved them and you wanted to make sure they didn't do stupid things and get hurt?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the fact you had to work did limit the amount of time you were able to spend with Robert one-on-one, right?
Did it limit my time?
Yes, ma'am.
No. No.
Okay. Well, for example, when you would go out to your lodge meetings, you would work shopping trips in with Robert at the mall, right? You'd have to work that in with the other activities?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you have a chance to see how Robert treated his own kids, his own family?
Yes.
Would you describe that, please?
Well, as far as I know, he took care of them. And one of his oldest little girl, she came here for the summer one year, and she was with me, and she was jumping on the sofa, and I said, Kylie, don't jump on the sofa. You're not home. She said, this is my home. And I said, oh, okay, so I sit back down. And the baby girl, she's just a little baby, but he took them to the park all the time, to the beach and stuff like that, for walks.
Yes, ma'am. He'd also take his little girl shopping, right?
Yes. We went to the Wellington Green Mall on 441 in West Palm Beach. Did school shopping.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. Now, I think you said to me that Robert was chubby as a child for a while, right?
Yeah, for a while, not long.
Okay. And during that time period, he got picked on and bullied quite a bit, didn't he?
I guess he did at school. I wouldn't know because I wasn't there.
Well, you knew when he'd come home and you found out he'd been in a fight after the fact, didn't you?
Yeah, but that was like high school fights.
Okay. Now, what do you know about Robert's cooking skills?
He has a lot of cooking skills. I think he went to Cardin Blue cooking school.
Does he ever cook? Does he ever cook at family get-togethers, family outings?
Yes, they did like barbecues. We go to the beach, and they barbecue at the beach at somebody's house.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, family house. I mean, not just somebody's house. Family house.
I was going to have you hold up a picture or two of Robert, but that's not going to work now, so I'll get on to the next question.
Okay.
Has Robert, well, on that barbecue subject, did you have a chance to taste Robert's cooking yourself?
Yes.
How is it?
It's good. When I stayed with him, I go over there and stay in the morning time after I get off from work. I was working at Walmart, and he fixed me breakfast. That was good.
Was there a certain dish of his that was one of your favorites?
Well, I just ate breakfast that time, so it was like grits and eggs and sausage and toast.
Okay. And everything done right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And a lot of it he got for me because I used to cook all the time. So.
Oh, so you were able to teach him some cooking. Good.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Has Robert enriched your own life? Has he made your own life better because he's in the world?
Yes, Robert plus the other ones too. All of them.
Yes, ma'am.
I treat everybody the same. I try to do for all of them.
Let me ask you this, because we're in court right now, and I'm trying to persuade a jury to spare his life.
Okay.
If Robert goes off to prison, will you talk to him by phone? I know you can't travel much, but there's phone calls allowed. Would you want to talk to him by phone?
I talk to him by phone now, 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Sometimes Saturday, and sometimes Sunday.
That's good. I'm sure you know that means a lot to inmates. Do you?
Yes.
Will you continue that?
Oh yes, that's my son.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, you want to confer with your client before I move on to this?
All right. Thank you for reminding me. That's all we have.
All right, thank you. Anything from the state?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, Ms. Hayes, the next voice you will hear is Mr. Urbanek. He's the prosecutor in the case. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Ms. Hayes.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking, Ms. Hayes. Ms. Hayes, do you feel that you were a good caregiver and parent to your children?
Yes, I do.
Do you feel like you were a good provider to them, giving them an opportunity to move forward in life and even attend college like your son did?
Yes. I have 3 that attended college, and 1 went to the military, and now the other one that's finished school. So all of them finished school.
And you provided for them when they were young, basically on your own.
Basically, I had family members help, and I had friends help, but basically on my own.
And throughout Mr. Hayes' life, have you known him to ever have any mental disorders or mental illnesses?
No. No.
And beyond you spoke a little bit about the discipline of your children to make sure they followed your rules. Beyond that, would you consider yourself to be an abusive parent?
No, but I think to where standards are now, they would say that was abuse.
So it's more acceptable at that time, the way you raised your children?
Yes.
May I have one moment, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you, Mrs. Hayes.
All right, Mr. Anderson, anything else from Mrs. Hayes?
Just one quick one.
Mrs. Hayes, Mr. Anderson has one more question for you.
Mrs. Hayes, we don't have a video, and we can't really have you show any pictures of your son, but do you remember when your son was a cheerleader at Bethune-Cookman College?
Yes.
And I know you followed him in some of his college activities, including band. Do you remember seeing that picture of Robert standing with the cheerleader group as part of the cheerleading team at Bethune-Cookman College? Do you remember that picture?
I don't know. I remember him being a cheerleader, and I remember when we went to the classic, the instructor talked to me about she was glad to have him there as a cheerleader.
Your Honor, I have a photograph that I'm going to ask to be marked.
No objection, Judge.
Okay, without objection, the picture will be admitted as evidence for the defense.
I'm handing it to the clerk, Your Honor, to be marked as defendants next to.
Anything else for Mrs. Hayes?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Mrs. Hayes, thank you so much. I apologize we didn't have the benefit of being able to see you, but we heard you very clearly.
All right, thank you.
You have a good day. Bye-bye.
All right.
Okay, we need to give the jury a break. Take a 15-minute break, okay? 15 minutes.
The video off?
Yeah. Before we go on break, I just want to make it clear, Mrs. Hayes testified through the telephone. Initially, we had a very large number of difficulties trying to get her through the Zoom machine. Ultimately, we did see her for a little bit, the beginning of her testimony. Then I suggested we do it through the telephone, so long as the defense waived her being present and being able to see, and we being able to see her. And counsel indicated that he waived that requirement. Is that correct, Mr. Anderson?
That is correct, Your Honor. And before the image on the video started freezing, the jury did have a chance to see her move and talk and see her demeanor in her face for several good, clear seconds. And so I spoke to Mr. Hayes. We made a decision to go ahead with the audio.
Very well. Okay. So we'll go ahead and take our break now. 3:30. Come back at 3:30.